Hi, and welcome to I Know You Meant Well, a podcast brought to you by the Activist Collab. So, hi, welcome to the first episode of I Know You Meant Well. My name is Ashley Bearden. I am a filmmaker, and I started the Activist Collab to bring together young activists so we could talk about all sorts of different aspects of their work. And as a way to kind of find out the best way to tell their stories. And we've been able to have some really amazing conversations over the last couple of months. And we decided that instead of keeping those conversations to ourselves, that maybe they would better be heard in a podcast and that we could share them with all of you. So we're really excited to share our very first episode with you today. Today, I'm joined by 4 members of the Activist Collab, and we're going to discuss a topic that has come up a good bit in our conversations in the last couple of months, which is mental health in schools and how it's addressed and often how it is not addressed and not discussed in schools. And so we're going to get into that topic today. So let's get into it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Meredith. I'm 16 years old from Ontario, Canada. I advocate for mental health, toxic households, and abuse.
Hi, my name is Catherine. I am from San Francisco, California. I am 19 years old, and I advocate for mental health and OCD awareness.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie McAdoo. I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm currently 19 years old, and I use the arts and my voice to advocate for racial relations.
Hi, I'm Isabel. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I'm 23 and I advocate for disability rights and accessibility.
Yay, we're so glad that everybody's here today. So Catherine, I think you wanted to kind of start us off with a little bit of, you wanted to kind of get us started. So I'm gonna hand it over to you.
Yeah, so one important thing to acknowledge when talking about mental health is that all of us are not experts. We're not therapists, even though Isabel is a teacher and she has that experience. We're just talking about our own personal experiences and on the issue and just sharing what we've learned from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get right into the topic. Let's talk about sort of how we've seen mental health talked about and discussed in your schools. I'd just love to hear kind of everybody's experience here.
So I am the oldest. I graduated in 2015 and it was not discussed in school
At all.
at all.
Like you guys didn't have any specific curriculum that talked about it, or was it just not even, it wasn't even ever discussed by teachers or around any issues that came up ever?
I heard it in passing from students kind of as jokes, but it was never discussed in a formal setting. And there was no curriculum around it. And I don't feel that we had any support for it or that anyone was knowledgeable enough to even give us support if we needed it or asked for it.
I'm still in high school. I'm in grade 11. I'm definitely the baby of this group, and it still isn't really discussed now to the extent at maybe stress week during exams, but those are not tangible tools that they give us. It's only when we're under severe stress. But as we know, mental health shouldn't only be discussed when it gets really bad. We need to know how to keep it in a good state since it's a continuum.
Yeah. So that's like, I guess, like a 7-ish year difference if you graduated in 2015 and you're still in school and it's still not as discussed as it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think as someone, because I struggled a lot with my own mental health throughout high school, I missed most of my sophomore year for treatment because I struggled pretty significantly with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And one thing is I definitely saw throughout my time in high school, kind of the conversation around mental health evolve, which was really, which was hopeful to a degree. Because I mean, when I did go off to treatment my sophomore year, which was in the school year of 2017, 2018, there people did not know where I was. People did not know why I was gone. No one was talking about it at all. Like people thought I had cancer, people thought I died. Like just it was this very like odd situation where no one was saying anything, and it was just really uncomfortable to say the least.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Wow. Well, when I'm thinking about how mental health was discussed in schools, I'm thinking about I see everything from a Black lens, from a Black girl lens, from a Black community lens. And that's the same way that I will address this. I feel like in white spaces for white students at my high school, which was fairly diverse for the city of Little Rock, it was discussed. It was openly inviting, you can see your counselors. And I have a story about it because there was a Central High School graduate, a white boy who graduated years ago, but he passed away due to, I think, a skating or a skateboarding incident. But a lot of the current students at my high school, still knew him and stuff. So it was a group of people who were very sad about it. And we all knew that he had passed away. They made a big announcement about it. They gave him a moment of silence on the announcements. I was in class and like teachers are like, let's just talk about this for a moment. Is everybody okay? Like it was just a very good environment for mental health in schools for that situation. Literally, like I don't know the time span. I want to say like 2 weeks later, like it was very recently later. A current Black student passed away, and it was due to gun violence, or I believe he was shot and killed. And so they immediately said, Black on Black crime or gang violence related. We're not going to discuss this and blah, blah, blah. But actually, like we didn't get that reaction at first. The first reaction we got was no reaction. So of course, immediately when the white skater who was the alum of the school passed away, instant, reaction for it. We're going to have a moment of silence. We're going to talk about this in classes. A couple weeks later, a current student passed away and there was nothing. So of course, the Black students who were his friends, you have an empty desk in the classroom. Like, this is fresh. Like, we know this person, he's in our class. Like, why has nobody addressed that he passed away? And so my brother actually arranged a meeting with the principal, very upset with his friends who were close to him, and said, we just want to know why we didn't have our moment of silence when just a couple weeks ago this happened. And he is still a current student, just on the roster still. And she said it was because it was due to a violent death, and we don't condone gang violence, and we don't condone gun violence, and just made it that type of thing. And so, of course, it really angered us. It really angered my brother. So he developed a club at school right around the time Black Lives Matter was starting. So I'm guessing it was 2017-ish. And he called it Tiger Lives Matter because that was our mascot. We were tigers, and it was still Black Lives Matter, just like Central High School version, like Tiger Lives Matter, but it meant Black Tigers Matter. And so we arranged a walkout. It was, I want to say like 12 o'clock. Like they were just like, okay, tomorrow, 12 o'clock, whatever class you're in, wherever you're at, just grab all your stuff, walk out. We're going to walk to the front of the school on the steps. We're going to give our bro a moment of silence, and so it was like really unifying. We saw people posting it on Instagram, and people brought like signs and stuff like "Rest in peace, we love you, we're not ignoring what happened." It was really sweet. And of course, I'm sure it was some students who just wanted to get out of class, but a lot of people were really like into it. Like that was their taste of activism. They were proud to walk out on their teachers, to walk on the steps. And so like my brother talked for a little bit. It wasn't long. Like we just stayed out there and we literally just gave our moment of silence. And then we proceeded to come in. So that just has a big play on mental health, because it felt like the white students were being supported during this when the Black students were facing, the same issue of a peer passing away, and they did nothing to address it because he was Black. So that's kind of like my experience with how mental health has been since I've been in school.
Yeah, wow, that story is really powerful. Did you notice, like with the community, like did there feel like a change after that happened? Did you notice that there felt like there was a more holistic change that felt good there?
I wouldn't say the community, but definitely the students. I feel like that just like opened the door that if something is wrong, we're gonna do this. They actually started a Black Student Union Club, I want to say that next year, which would not have happened, I don't think, had that incident happened. Like they kind of had that to fall back on. And so they started a Black student at BSU, and the news actually came. I don't know if like it got a lot of press like on social media if somebody called them, but yeah, like the local news came and everything. So it definitely like made its mark. And people who went to my high school that year, I think my junior year, like they remember it, they know about it. So I feel like justice was served in one sense or another, because we had to make it be that way.
Well, there's also such a strong history at Central High School in Little Rock too. It's kind of amazing that you guys did that there too.
Yes.
even just carrying that legacy on, which is really amazing. Yeah, I mean, it kind of, I guess I would be interested to hear just sort of how, like, that's kind of a little bit of a structural problem, right, with the school and the way things are sort of set up structurally at schools and how things are handled and things are funneled through different administrative rules. And have you guys seen that have a play on sort of how things were handled?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a structural issue that sort of perpetuates mental health problems in schools. Something that I noticed is starting in like fourth grade, we were constantly being told, oh, this won't pass in middle school. You have no idea how hard middle school is going to be. You're going to have all this homework and your teachers are never going to accept late work and you're never going to be able to, rest in class, all of these things. And then the second you got into middle school, it was preparing you for high school and you have no idea how hard high school is going to be and you think this is bad, well, it's going to be even worse and it's going to be so difficult and you just need to be perfect right now so that you can get into good classes in high school, so you can get into a good college. And then the second you got into high school, it was all about college and are you thinking about your future and you can't make any mistakes, all of your grades have to be perfect, you have to be in all of these extracurricular activities, like you have to be this perfect well-rounded person and you're like 13 and you're still trying to figure yourself out. And I just thought that was so hard. I felt such an immense pressure from basically the entire time that I was in school. And personally, I feel like my experience going to college was that a lot of that pressure was lifted because it wasn't so like forcing us to think about the next step. I mean, going into college, you have a little bit more freedom to think about that next step for yourself. So I didn't feel like there were all these people telling me so much, like, you have no idea how hard it's going to be after this. I mean, obviously that still exists, but it's crazy to me that like from the time that kids are 8 and 9, we start forcing it into them that like, well, start thinking about how hard it's going to be later for you and start being perfect now so it will be easier for you later to be perfect. And I just think that we should focus more on helping children and meeting their social and emotional needs rather than trying to get test scores up and produce these robots. It's just not what kids are. And I just feel like school makes mental health worse.
That's so true that once you get to college, like, yeah, the next step is the real world, but it almost seems like it's actually less pressure because at that point, it's kind of like up to you. Like, they're not going to be down your throat about your own future. You've made it this far and you're kind of like responsible enough for it. And in a way that makes you less stressed. Like, that really is crazy.
And college isn't for everyone. So, I mean, some people don't make the choice to go to college, obviously, and it is an immense privilege to go to college and to be able to go to college. However, it's frustrating to me that we continue to push that narrative onto kids that are so young because some kids aren't meant to go to college and some kids don't want to and they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't be thinking about it at that age. They shouldn't have to be thinking about it at such a young age.
I agree. It's like kind of this weird like system where it's like creating these like perfect people and that it just needs to start at like such a young age and just kind of forgetting all the other things that are going on at the same time, especially in regards to mental health. Like they're saying, oh yeah, you need to focus on college, you need to focus on planning your future. But they also don't know that like, well, they do know, but they don't acknowledge it, how teenage years are some of the hardest years, being an adolescent and just all like the uncertainty that comes with it, just like figuring yourself out, figuring out like friendships and relationships. And that's when people tend to like start struggling with like anxiety or depression. But like we've all kind of acknowledged, that's not really talked about in schools too like much when it really is an issue that everyone experiences at some point.
I feel like that kind of messaging that the structure of school has basically just tells you from a young age that you are not good enough as you are. And a fundamental thing of mental health and of having a good self-confidence is believing that you are enough just as you are. And the school is literally putting it into your brain that, no, you're not enough to do this. Oh, I don't know, will you do fine in high school? Because if you don't try hard enough now, you're not good enough. What does that tell a young kid who's really impressionable? I know that did not have a good impact on me. And that led to me prioritizing school over my mental health and then getting praised for the good grades when yet I was using school I would be like crying all day, but I'd be like, at least I got my homework done, right? Because that's all that matters. And I just think it's so sad how it takes something to happen, like a kid at your school dying, for them to start to maybe talk about mental health. Like, why is it that only once something happens, you see it important? If you opened your eyes and saw in front of you how many kids are struggling, why kids are falling asleep in class, why the kids aren't active in class, it's because there's obviously some internal struggles, but we don't take a moment to step back and think about that. And then on top of that, they don't give us these tools to help with the structure that they create. They put us into this box and then they don't give us any tools to help us thrive in the structure they force us into.
Yes, good point.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think like one of the main things is like when you think about it, when you enter high school, because I know at least from my experience, high school is definitely like the most stressful years of my life so far. And one thing is that I remember my high school spent like a whole weekend on orientation. Like we even had like a dance to get to know each other. Like my school was very into like community building and growth and all these things. But as we learned like possibly like every other thing that we needed to know, we didn't talk about how stressful it was going to be and how much pressure was going to be put on you. And even if it wasn't like the teachers or administration directly putting pressure on you, it's it's the competitive like nature between you and other students, and just that constant like comparison, like, oh, this person is taking this many AP classes versus I'm only taking this many. Am I going to be as prepared for college? And just these conversations where people, even freshman year, are like, yeah, I need to get into a good college. I'm going to work my butt off to get into this school. And it's like, they're not giving any time for themselves to focus or prioritize. And the school doesn't acknowledge that this is going to be an issue and that it's going to be really stressful. So I think that's something that they need to at least acknowledge up front and just show like, yeah, this is going to be probably be the most stressful time of your life. And you're probably going to struggle with your mental health the more, but here are resources, kind of what Meredith was saying.
Yeah, both of my parents are teachers. So I've always been to like educator things and just heard their perspective of things. And one thing that they constantly say is that it's all these standardized tests and all this structure, but there is no standardized student. And I was like, wow, like that's deep. Like they try to put us in structures, they try to control us, they try to, make us in factories. Like they say that the bill and the structure comes from factories, but all of these things are in place in schools that does affect our mental health, that they're trying to produce a product. And it's like, but we're all individuals, we're all different, we all learn differently. And if they were more open about how everybody is an individual, then maybe there would be less mental health issues from students.
And schools need to invest in that. It really would take a lot of energy and money and time to invest in people that can help support students, that are educated and trained and prepared to help students, because teachers can't do everything. And unfortunately, we just value, as a country, we just value standardized testing more, and we value those scores and grades. And currently our priority is making sure that those things are on top. And for that reason, we've let students fall to the bottom, and we don't care about mental health. We've done nothing to support mental health. And we've done nothing to support teacher mental health either. None of us are prepared enough to support students, and no one is there to support us either. So it's just this vicious cycle where we're all being forced to prioritize things that we know don't matter as much as the students do. And we really should be supporting kids more all around.
Have you guys seen some areas where you think that like things that are going well, or have you seen anything that has been done in any of the schools that you would say is a positive, or ideas you have that could be for a positive? Any hope at the end of this conversation, I guess?
I think one positive outcome of COVID and having conversations with families throughout the pandemic is that a lot of parents are discussing mental health now, and maybe they mean well with it, maybe they don't, but I've seen so many parents weaponize that conversation to try to say that we are hindering students' mental health by keeping them home, and therefore we need to send them back to school. However, I really hope that after this, we continue that conversation and acknowledge that when they are in school, physically in the building, mental health is not thriving there either. And we have so many problems that we've already discussed that are really harming students. And I hope that those parents and, faculty, staff, everyone involved in this system that have been having that conversation for the last year because of the pandemic continue to have that conversation after the pandemic and realize that students really are struggling, and we need to build those tools to help them so that we're not harming them so much in school, and that we're giving them the tools they need.
Yeah, and I liked how you said, teachers can't do everything. And I think what I've learned from being a teacher's kid, I guess, is that the good teachers will try. So my mom always talks about how, because she is one of the better teachers, well, she doesn't say it like that, but that's how I say it. This is what I think. Because she's one of the better teachers, sometimes she does get the harder students, or just students with different issues that need more personalized help. And she's always going the extra mile, always helping them. But she's like, I'm not a counselor, so maybe there should be another position that focuses more on that. I mean, we have counselors, but like we said, in high school, that's all about transcripts and college and scholarships. Like, there's no mental health part of it to me, from counselors whenever you're in high school. So I don't know, but it also makes me think that it's all of these problems are just pushing the students to be the activists, just taking matters into their own hands. And so it makes me think of this whole pass the skirt thing. So I think it was my senior year of high school, and it was a different high school. It wasn't my high school, but a girl at another high school, a Black girl who I believe was bigger, I guess, or thicker. She was wearing a skirt, and she got dress coded for it because it was, too revealing or something. And she either had to change or go home. She got in trouble for wearing her skirt. And she was like, this is a perfectly fine skirt. It's just because I'm a little curvier. It's kind of like discriminating against body types, blah, blah, blah. They weren't having it. The rule is the rule, I guess, which can be different rules because some schools say arm length. Some schools just, I guess, play it by eye, and they just say, I don't know. But so she did like a little experiment, and she gave the exact same skirt to her white friend, who I think was like a little smaller than her or something. I just know that she was white and the first girl was Black. So her white friend went to school like the next day or a couple days later in the exact same skirt, walked past the administrators who dress coded the other girl, all of this, went through the whole school day and didn't get in trouble at all. And so they started like a hashtag on Instagram and Twitter, and it was called hashtag pass the skirt. And they have a new Instagram, or they made an Instagram, I think it's still there, at pass the skirt. And basically, I guess that next day, everybody just came up in their skirts, like whether they were too short or whatever, they just all came in solidarity in their skirts, even pictures of boys in skirts, like they all would put it on Instagram or something or use the hashtag. And so I went to a different high school, but that was happening in my city, and I saw that. And I want to say they got national news, because I remember they had some big interviews happening about that. And so it's just like, you ask, what's the hope? You ask, how can we improve this in the future? And I think it's just our generation coming together and starting hashtags or starting walkouts or starting clubs. Whenever we see that there's something wrong in these schools, then we just have to kind of take it into our own hands and be the leaders that we have to be for the next generations.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that story. It's a great story.
The thing I love about our generation is how we see a problem and we see something happening in schools. We see something, the skirt problem, and we tackle it. We think of ways to tackle it, and we don't sit back and complain about protesters burning down buildings. Not even them doing that, but we don't sit back and complain and be like, wow, what are all these kids doing? They're not dealing with this the right way. No, we see it and we go for it. And I think that is incredible. Go us, power to us. I know an example in my school that I think gave me some hope, but also a way that I tried to take action was that there was recently a previous student who had committed suicide, and their brother still goes to the school. So it's still really involved in my school community. And there was a big GoFundMe going around, and everyone was talking about it. Everyone was trying to help. But the one organization that was not talking about it was our school. I thought, you would say something, maybe an email, maybe something, but no. And I'm in charge of the mental health part of our school Instagram. And the teacher was emailing me inspirational quotes to post on the Instagram, like a glow stick needs to break to glow, and just stuff like that. And I emailed back and I was like, I'm sorry, I can't post stuff like this. Like, someone has just died, and there are many other people that have had those similar thoughts and gotten close to that, and it just gets more and more prominent. This is a critical issue, and you're asking me to post an inspirational quote to put a band-aid over this deep, deep issue. I won't talk about things unless they're things that kids actually need to hear. So I met with the principal and I met with the guidance counselors and the social workers at our school, and we're trying to come up with a way that we can make something that isn't just about the light and fluffy stuff, and where we can provide multiple suicide resources other than the helpline, like actual resources. And yeah, that's in the works right now. But it was just mind boggling to me that, like, that's, I think, the second death of my school this year, and neither which have been talked about at all.
Wow.
Yeah, I've definitely like seen something, I mean, within like my own high school, that it definitely takes time for these things to happen, which definitely speaks to like the nature of like stigma and how people just aren't going to talk about it immediately just because they feel ashamed to do so. And like one thing that I saw was kind of by the time I was a senior, so after most of my 4 years of high school, that was when things started to happen in regards to mental health. Like I always tried to, especially after I went off to treatment for my OCD and got back, that's kind of when I started all my advocacy and activism work. And one thing that I tried to do within my own classes is just talk about it on a regular basis. And even though the school wasn't initiating these conversations, like I could try to at least just when there was a topic that at least like related somewhat to mental health, bring up struggling with your mental health. Like when we have different projects where you can choose a topic, I always chose something in relation to mental health and mental illness and just any sort of injustice that there was there. But one thing that was just really encouraging was during my senior year, before the pandemic happened, we started this mental health ambassadors program at my school. And I was kind of leading the program with another girl. And one thing that we chose to do was, my school was just very competitive as it was. Just people were super competitive about their grades, and people were just kind of breaking under the stress. Like, especially like I saw within my own class, just like seniors, like, oh my gosh, getting into college, like that was just such a big stressor. So one thing that I thought is just even having like signs around the school to just kind of show people, or just give them a little bit to think, or give them something to think about that could improve their mental health in some sort of way, even though it's a very small step. It still was really hopeful. Like one of the signs that I remember, it was actually like hanging, it was really big, and it was like in the entrance. It said, your grades don't define you. And that was one thing which I was really surprised my school allowed us to hang, because they take a lot of pride in like academic success. But I think they're starting to realize what an important piece it is to talk about mental health.
Yeah. I love that. We can kind of end on a little bit of hope, which is there is some out there, but I think it's so important that we're just bringing this conversation to light, because I think, Meredith, the way you were talking about the way your school, I feel like people don't, it's like a lot, the light and fluffy stuff gets talked about a lot. And it's like, people think that that's good enough to sort of, to be, it's like a Band-Aid over certain problems, right? It's like, I know you mean well, but it's actually not helpful. It's almost like harmful to treat something that's so big with something so small. It diminishes the meaning that has on people's lives. So I think you guys are also amazing, and I love all of the work that you're doing, and every story you shared is so important. And you all live in such different communities in different parts of the US and Canada, and just I feel like that this is hopefully going to start to spread more and more the more we talk about it. I would love for you guys to go around and tell where we can all find you, because I would love if anybody wants to follow this amazing group. They all have great Instagram accounts where they talk about all of their activism. So can you go around and give us your handles?
Well, I'll go with my website instead, which everything is on there, which is jamiemcadoo.com, which is JAMEEMCADOO.com. And that has all activism related and performances on there.
I can go next. I run an Instagram page just kind of talking about mental health and OCD awareness and just my own personal recovery. It's called The Road to Recovery from OCD with an underscore separating each word. And yeah.
I am the co-founder of an organization called Disability Together that discusses all things disability, and we provide accurate representation for all disabled people and education for everyone. And you can find us at Disability Together on Instagram.
I run an Instagram page where I share my story and talk about really important issues that I see facing teens and just everyone around me, including myself. My Instagram is Mayor's Advice 101. MERES and then Advice 101.
Thank you guys all for joining me today on our first episode.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. To find out more about the Activist Collab, you can follow us on Instagram at The Activist Collab or online at theactivistcollab.com. New episodes of I Know You Meant Well will be coming out every Thursday, so we'll talk to you next week.